This case is about a young woman who, while handling a firearm in front of Mr. Rasch, discharged it and tragically killed herself instantly. And to make matters worse, Mr. Rasch believed that he would be blamed for her death, as it was his firearm and the divorce that was pending. He panicked and made a series of incredibly poor decisions. He lied to his friends and family. He raised suspicions. He was targeted by law enforcement, and eventually he was prosecuted for her death. The government is attempting to turn the tragedy of Crystal's death into the travesty of prosecuting Mr. Rasch for her death. And at the end of this case, my partner, Merle Josti, will come before you and ask you to end it once and for all. So how did we get here? So on June 8th, Zachariah Rasch picked up Crystal Rasch from Kleiman. And they were going through a divorce at the time. They had a divorce trial, a divorce hearing set for August of 2024. And by and large, it was going to be the end of their marriage. But they still spent time together. They had children together, and from time to time, they spent time together. And on this weekend, beginning on Saturday until the following Monday and Tuesday, they spent time in Adams County, near Wisconsin Dells, where his grandmother has some trailers on a property there in the woods that's frequented by all the family members. And they spent time together. They behaved as a couple. They went down to the Wisconsin Dells in town, spent time there, eating, enjoying the Dells. But there was one thing that was looming. That's always been looming. In fact, it's been looming for the past 5 years. And that's the children that they have together are not with them. The state of Wisconsin has taken them away. And then, no doubt, Crystal loved her children. And no doubt, she also had a looming date to determine what is going to happen with her children. Will she get to be with them again? Will she have custody with them again? You have to remember, these are young children. They've been 5 years with a foster mother at this time, developing relationships and moving forward. And adoption was on the table. It's a zero-sum game, adoption. Someone's going to have the children and somebody won't. And on June 11th, they went together to Milwaukee, looking to speak with some attorneys. Now, Crystal did have an attorney at the time, but you'll see from the Google searches that they Googled attorneys in Milwaukee and that their cell phone records show that they were there. But they couldn't walk into a law firm and say, look, we want a meeting. They didn't have an appointment. And it was a letdown again. And in that ride home, something happened. And Zach doesn't know exactly what happened as he was driving, but he did have a 9mm in his vehicle. And then, as he was driving, the gun discharged. And then he drove to his property in Kleiman and began a series of incredibly poor decisions because of how it looked. And it didn't look good. It was his firearm. It was a divorce. Clearly the last person to be with her. And he panicked. He did what he could to dispose of her body. He lied to friends and family. He created false Facebook accounts and messages. And he lied to the police. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. There's lots, and he used her bank card to deal with what was going on. Now, there's a lot that we can agree on in this case. And one of the first things that we're going to agree on is, yes, in fact, Crystal Rasch is deceased. We will agree also that Crystal Rasch's remains were found at that property on Wood Road, which is N3251. And their remains were found in a burn pit and also covered with sulfuric acid. We will have few questions for a lot of these witnesses that are going to come forward and testify to that. The forensic anthropologists, the dentists are going to be testifying to things that we agreed. We will have very little, if any, questions for those witnesses. But remember, this is a first-degree intentional homicide case. And there is a lot that we are not going to agree about. Judge Fitzinger has already told you that the prosecution has the burden of proving their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Every element of the offense. And he mentioned two important words in his opening remarks. Number one is that Mr. Rasch caused Crystal Rasch's death. Two, that he caused her death intentionally. The prosecution has no direct evidence about what happened surrounding her death. It will be based on circumstantial evidence. There's no eyewitness to what happened that they will present. There's no video of the shooting and the gun discharging. There's no audio of it. And so they will be putting together a puzzle for you, or an attempt to do so, but you'll see that there are missing pieces. And that they're very crucial missing pieces of what happened. And even the prosecutor in opening statement says, we don't know what caused the death. And that's what we're here for. Causation and intent. Now, there may be a temptation when there are competing theories about what happened to put the evidence on one side and on the other side and kind of weigh it out and see which one sounds better, which one is more correct. And that would be completely appropriate in a civil trial, where they weigh the evidence by what they call preponderance of the evidence. Which side has a little bit more evidence versus beyond a reasonable doubt. There are three questions that I want to leave you with to consider while this case is pending and while listening to the evidence. What element of the offense does this piece of evidence prove or disprove? And we're talking specifically about causation and intent. When the witnesses are testifying on what does it prove and disprove. Number two, can the prosecution rule out that Crystal Rasch shot herself? And if you are left with any lingering questions surrounding the cause of death, ask yourself, are there any lingering questions? Then that's reasonable doubt. And the prosecution cannot turn this tragedy into a travesty without your permission. And at the end of this case, my partner will ask for justice. He will ask you to end this prosecution. But he can only do it with each and every one of you. And he will ask for the only verdict that is supported by the science and the evidence. And that's a verdict of not guilty on the homicide charges. Thank you.